Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Flight. This movie is directed by Robert Zemeckis, who previously directed Forrest Gump and Castaway. This movie stars Denzel Washington, Kelly Riley, Bruce Greenwood with Don Cheadle, and John Goodman. Now, I'm sure many of you were like me and you saw the trailer to this movie and you thought it was going to be about Denzel Washington playing an airline pilot who everybody loves and can do no wrong, and then he miraculously lands a plane during a disaster. But then his toxicology report comes back and shows that he may or may not have had alcohol in his system. But because he's an innocent man, he has to fight the system and prove everybody wrong and end up triumphant as the good guy. Right? Well, guys, unfortunately, this movie is not about that at all. It's really about Denzel Washington, who does play an airline pilot, who does land a plane miraculously, but he plays a guy who likes to party way too hard. And so he has to struggle to put together his life, reconnect with his family, and overcome his tremendous battle with alcoholism. Yeah, there you go, guys. It's not a thriller. It's a drama. Let me start with the actors in this movie. Let me start with the minor characters, and I'll get to Denzel Washington in the end. Alright, Kelly Riley is a woman that Denzel Washington meets. They kind of develop a thing for, and to me she looks like Shawnee Smith from Saw mixed with Jessica Chastain. And she's in the beginning of the movie, and so you think the movie is going to focus on her and then Denzel Washington and maybe both of them together. Well, they do that, but unfortunately she doesn't stick around till the end of the movie. So it's kind of like, okay, well, if her character is going to make this decision and live this kind of lifestyle, then all of that effort and screen time and focus on her was pointless. Speaking of pointless, they do bring up Denzel Washington's family in this movie. He mentions every once in a while that he doesn't really talk to his kid and he's divorced. But then there's a scene where he gets way too drunk and he goes to his ex-wife's house and they clearly want nothing to do with him. You know, they even argue and stuff. And then we see his family again, you know, later on in the movie, and I just wish they would have focused more on that, because the way the movie ends, you kind of feel like, well, why didn't you just establish this halfway through the movie and then, you know, end the movie with like this happy and sad moment? And to me, it was kind of like you waited too long to do that. Okay, Bruce Greenwood. He's a good actor. It's good to see Bruce Greenwood again, but his role in this movie was very small. He seems very one-dimensional. We didn't get to see too much of his character. Same kind of thing with Don Cheadle, where it seemed like he was always willing to help out Denzel Washington, but that was really it. John Goodman. It's always good to see John Goodman, but in this movie he really overdid it as Denzel Washington's druggy pal. It seemed like he'd watched way too much Cheech and Chong and stuff and just was trying to do like a caricature of that. It was a little too much for me. Two other characters. You have the co-pilot who played the white guy in Hurt Locker, the nervous dude. Good job on his part. And then you have Melissa Leo from The Fighter, and her role was really, really small as the person that was asking all the questions of Denzel Washington during the hearing, but really, really small role. I wish they would have used her more in the movie, as you know. As much as they showed Denzel Washington, I think they should have shown her as well. And then you have, alright, Denzel Washington, the man. Now, as soon as I found out he was going to be in this movie, I was like, alright, I'm going to see it, because I wasn't too impressed with his role in Safe House. And the movie before that, I think, was Unstoppable? Yeah, so I was like, alright, Denzel Washington, good to see him as the main focus of a movie. Alright, let's do this. So I saw it, and I gotta tell you guys, I left the movie confused. Not because I didn't understand the movie or anything, but I didn't know how I felt about it, because it was like the movie made you feel one way about Denzel Washington's character, like, oh, what an asshole. But then, at the end of the movie, you're like, maybe that changed my opinion about him. I literally left the theater going, I had to think about this one. Now, this role from Denzel is very different from anything we've seen before. Yes, we've seen characters and actors like Leonardo DiCaprio and Joaquin Phoenix and Jamie Foxx play characters that had addictions and needed help, and we saw them at the best times, we also saw them at the worst times. And you definitely see Denzel Washington at his worst dealing with his alcoholism in this movie. And I've got to say, he doesn't play the nicest guy. He doesn't usually play his nice, charming, smiling self. He really just plays a guy that lets you down and leaves you disappointed. There are many times in this movie where you're like, alright Denzel, you know what you have to do. You know you need to stop. All right, good, he's stopping. All right, good. Wait, what are you doing, Denzel? Oh, no. So it's like you get mad at him every time he sets down the bottle. You're like, all right, good. But then every time he picks it back up, you're like, no, no. And it almost aggravates you. Something I did like about this movie was the message in the end. And it had the same kind of message to me as the movie Injustice for All did. It's with Al Pacino. It's one of my favorite Al Pacino movies, and to me it's very underrated. I'll probably just do a review on that myself because the movie's so good. Anyways, that movie in the end was about doing what's right. And to me, that was the message of this movie. You know, Robert Zemeckis usually likes to do uplifting stories. You know, he has a very, very obvious undertone of religion in this movie. Because a lot of scenes have either a cross on the wall or hands with a rosary, or they talk about Jesus and God, and they kind of almost shove it down your throat, but it's not as like, hey, look at me, as a movie like Courageous is. But still, Robert Zemeckis tries to have a good meaning in his movies, and yeah, the movie does end with a positive message, but throughout the course of the movie, I mean, with all the drugs and all the bad language, I was kind of thinking, okay, Robert Zemeckis, you've gotten edgy. So it was kind of hard for me to range this movie. So from a rating of 1 to a 5, I'm going to give Flight a 3, just because I liked the acting from Denzel, but the rest of the movie I was like, okay, this is different, but that's it. Like, it really didn't leave me going, yeah, the movie was awesome, but then it really didn't leave me going, okay, Denzel could have done a better job. So it gets a 3, guys. Something I really did like about this movie was the music. There's only 2 types of movies in which you can play Rolling Stones over and over again, and it never gets tiring. One being a Martin Scorsese movie, and the other one being a Denzel Washington movie, because those songs really fit well in this film. So guys, if you're a fan of Denzel Washington and you want to see him make a comeback, check this movie out. Even though it's different Denzel Washington, his acting is still superb. And I think he'll get a nomination come Oscar season, because usually when you play a character that has trouble with alcoholism or drug abuse or some handicap, you're almost always nominated. I just wish this was based on a true story. That way I think I would have liked it more. So until next time, guys, see ya.